To start working on the propose a new name feature, we first need to create the API endpoint to propose a new name. So this would be under API index. Right now we have 3 API endpoints and we need to add a 4th one. So this API endpoint should be a post endpoint because we are creating a resource. The API convention is to use post in that case. And we are posting to /names. That's the resource that we're posting to. We'll do a regular handler for request and response. That's just Express syntax. And in here, we want to read the data from the body parameter of Express because we will be sending the data for the new name as a JSON object. So we want to read it here, but we have to parse it from the request, and Express has a middleware to do that. It's called body parser. And the syntax for body parser is simple. We just require it, and we want to use the body parser JSON. So let's bring in body parser first with npm install body parser. And when that's ready, let's go to our server.js, import body parser from body-parser, and then use it. Server.use body parser.json, just like that. So in fact, we can immediately test that. Let's console log request.body. And we definitely need an arrow here. We're not using response, that's fine. So to test post requests, the easiest way is to use Postman. So Google for Postman Chrome and install this application. I have it already, so I'm going to launch this application now. So we're going to test a post request into localhost 8080 API/names. That's our API endpoint. And in the body tab, we want to send raw data. And our type here is JSON. That's how we want to do it. And in here, we can send data. So let's make sure the body parser is working correctly with this console log. We just hit send. We don't have a response. That's normal. However, in our server log, I can read this data in here. So now we want to design our API. What should this API receive as data? This API is to propose a new name. So we want the new name. So let's call this new name. This would be the name that we're proposing. And this API also needs to locate the contest that we're proposing this name to. So let's provide the contest ID. And for testing, I'm going to use an actual value for the contest ID in here. So cancel this request that doesn't have anything. In fact, how about we just do response.send for testing. So now when we send, we are echoing back the request.body, which is great. So let me read these 2 variables to use them directly. So we have the contest ID, which is request.body.contest ID. And we have the name, which is request.body.newName. And in here, you potentially want to do some validation on the input. Make sure that you have a name and this name is valid, or maybe this name is unique if you want to. But I'm going to skip this part. However, we should definitely do object ID here to work with the contest ID as an object. Now this API needs to do 3 things. It will first create the name, then it will read the created name ID. It will go update the contest and append this new ID for a name to the contest that we're appending to. And then it should return something. And we can choose what to return. And when you think about returning data, think about how the UI is going to use this data. So when we propose a new name in the UI, we want the list of names to be updated immediately. So we need to return the new names information. And we also need to tell the UI that the contest has changed. We can either do this on the client or we can do it on the server. And usually doing things on the server is a little bit easier. So if we return the updated contest information plus the new name information, it would be a lot easier for the UI to work with that data. So let's assume that we want to return both the updated contest and the new name information. So as a third step, we need to look up the updated contest information and return that data. So first step, insert name. Second step, update contest. Third step, read the modified contest information and return data from there. However, instead of doing 2 operations to update the contest and then read the updated information, MongoDB has this find and modify method, which can be handy here. We just find the contest and modify it and return the newly modified contest in one operation. but we still have to insert the name first. So we want mdb.collection for names, and we want to insert one record. And in here, we specify the properties that we want this record to have. So the only thing that we want to insert really is just the name. And remember, Mongo is going to auto-generate an ID for me. So in the promise for this operation, Mongo is going to give me a result object. And what I want to do inside this promise is go ahead and do the MDB collection contests dot find and modify. This find and modify has a little bit of weird syntax, but let me go through it with you. The first argument is the query that we want to find an object for. So we want to find the contest by its ID. And in here, we just have the contest ID, which we already converted into an object. The second argument here is the sort. In case the first argument returned many records, how do we want to sort these records to pick the first element to modify? So we don't really have to do this. So I'm just going to specify an empty array. The third argument is what do we need to modify? And in our case, we want to modify the name ID's property in the contest and push the newly generated name ID. So the syntax to do that in Mongo is to use $push and specify an object here. And in that object, we say push to the name ID's field, the newly generated name ID, which we can read from the result object in the promise. So in here, it will be result.inserted ID. So in this result object, it exposes an inserted ID property, and this inserted ID will have the automatically generated _ID object. In the third optional argument here, we want to specify the option new is true so that the find and modify call is going to return the updated document. And this find and modify is also going to be a promise that exposes the document. And what I want to do inside in here is, well, I'm actually ready to respond with the data. I inserted the name, I updated the document, and now I'm ready to respond with whatever data that I think the UI is going to use. So let's respond with an updated contest. This is the document.value here in the promise. This would be the actual document that we updated. And let's also respond with the new name object. Let's make this into an object and respond with _ID. This is the newly created ID. This is the same thing, result.inserted ID. And also the name itself, so that we confirm that we just inserted this name. And we should handle the error in these promises. So I'm going to catch. And let's see, why do we have this problem? Oh, it's just a return value here, so we don't need a semicolon. And I think we're ready to test that. So in Postman, it's going to be the exact same thing. You know what? We should probably also respond with a status error. Same thing we did in our API here. So I'm going to actually do the same catch statement in this new API. In fact, we should probably do that everywhere here. Let's test our new API endpoint. So in here, we're going to send this awesome new name and take a look at the response. So in the response, we got the updated contest, which is the contest that we selected. And in the name IDs, we have a third name. And this third name is associated with the new name that I just inserted. So this API is ready. In the next movie, we'll go ahead and use it from the UI.